And when you look back, David, what do you think has been one of the toughest challenges for you, either in your personal life or your professional life, that you had to overcome?
I think the biggest was realizing that I could offer more not in frontline, because I always think my brain's an accountant and my heart is a social worker. um, but it's very hard to manage with just your heart. And I tried it for a number of years, but the impact of failure was very big on me back then. And I wasn't particularly good at documentation detail, things that were important to clients, really important. And so I made a lot of mistakes. And out of those, I could offer more if I used my brain more to accomplish what my heart would like to do.
Mm-hmm.
But making that decision was really hard to move away from. I always thought that MBAs were heartless.
You've changed your opinion now, right?
Yeah, it took a lot to stop trying to pursue that one goal and switch gears and try and learn more about systems and management.
And you spoke about some of the professional goals that CMHA you're working on. Are there any personal goals that you are currently working on?
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of reading on transparency right now, because COVID-19 is when most of our staff are working remotely. What were really good communication channels and really good networks for people to share and support have broken down, right? And how do you start to help people build those again? And trust has. We do a fairly regular staff survey, and during COVID, we're doing it every 6 weeks to try and keep an eye on culture. And trust has dropped dramatically. And it's common across, the people who are doing the survey are saying it's in all sectors right now. So I've been reading about transparency as a way to build trust. You think about the way the last 6 months or a year has gone. We make decisions on the fly. We change them. We send people to a testing center on Thursday night, and this is an example, and by Friday morning, the rules have changed. And they show up, and their first reaction is, we lied to them, right? Or we made a mistake, but the rules changed overnight, and they are changing all the time right now. So we've started having weekly organizational meetings where it's open to all staff. And myself and the rest of the senior team are all there, and we start with some topics and present on them, and then people ask questions in the chat. And literally we try to answer everything honestly. There's nothing where we're holding back. So anyway, it seems to be having a positive effect, but it's made me really interested in the role of transparency and trust. So that's kind of.
Yeah, I'm curious if you have any advice of how we may be able to manage that better in leadership positions. Is there a way to let our officials know that this is not working, or there's a better way to do things?
Well, you have to do both, right? You manage up and you manage down. The up is there a way that we can be a little bit more careful and thoughtful about decisions as they come out, so that we aren't doing as many reversals? But making mistakes is a positive thing. We're just making a lot of them right now. And out of each one, we learn something else, right? We wouldn't be where we are. There's a piece about being thoughtful that we all have to keep in mind, but there's also, I think it's part of learning. Making mistakes is okay. And that's where this transparency piece comes in. Because often we don't know why those decisions were made.
Right.
And that's the part that makes it confusing, right? But if we know why the first decision was made and then why they changed, chances are it's been quite thoughtful. It makes it easier to understand, well, yeah, that has a bad impact on me, but they made a mistake and they corrected it. That's good.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's about knowing why, the understanding. And once you know that why, then you take ownership of that decision, because it's hard to take ownership of something if you don't understand where it's coming from.
Yeah, and that's, a lot of the challenges always in leadership is trying to make sure that people are bought in all the way down. When you decide to do something and something completely different happens,
Yeah. And what would you say is one of the the toughest challenges right now that you are facing?
The pandemic is the biggest, and trying to keep the organization running. Our job is to go see, predominantly it's to go see people that are in mental health crisis or experiencing mental health challenges, and keeping those face to face. Like, mental health is something that is often, we're learning a lot about what we can do virtually, but we're also learning that there's parts of it that have to be done face to face, right? We're talking about people's minds and psychology. We need to be there observing what's going on, how it works. So that's probably a challenge, is keeping that front of mind and figuring out how we keep going into people's homes and helping them in a situation where they may not want us, and some of our staff may not want to go. And then the longer term stuff is, the systems integration, the Ontario Health Team's agenda, and how we continue to try to think about what's good for all patients and clients, and not what's good for our organization or individuals as staff, those sort of things.
So David, what advice do you have for ambitious leaders who are looking to grow and aspire to be in your shoes one day?
Don't rush. Keep the long picture. As long as it's a step towards your goal. Like, I've had a couple of different career moves that looked kind of backwards, and then but they help move me in lanes. You know what I mean? I get to move across, and I always keep in mind 3 goals, right? Education, family, and career, and those are the 3 that I have very different goals in. Family, it's about travel and relationships and friendships, keeping all of those going. And career, it's developing more as a leader, trying to think about systems work in the long term. And I've got a couple ideas on where I may go next around that. And then the education is always one you can rely on. And I always figure if you have 2 of those, like, actively going, then you're moving ahead fine. If you've got 1, you're moving ahead okay. If you're not going to get all 3 going at the same time, then that's magic, right? But I think sometimes you get stuck in jobs and you can't figure out a way out of it. Concentrate on the other 2.
That's such great advice, because life is an integration of all the different parts. It's not just work or life outside work. It's all, how do they intertwine together and come together?